What up, Fohse family? It's Leo here, and it is official. Our podcast series, Welcome to the Future, starts now. It's real, man. This is our first episode, and wow, it feels great to be talking to you all. I hope you know you have a great season ahead of you. Be sure to tune in every Friday, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our weekly upload. You can catch it streaming live exclusively on Fohse.com. That's Fohse.com. But you can also find it listed at all podcast directories. So without further ado, welcome to the future. You know we have to kick off the first episode right with our Fohse family. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Fohse's CEO and president, Brett Stevens and Ben Arnet. Fellas, welcome to the table. How does it feel to have a podcast, really? It's finally happening.
Love the platform. Love the idea of having a place where growers, new and old, cultivators, investors, everyone can come and kind of ask some of the questions that need to be said about cannabis cultivation in a commercial setting, and lighting. There's been a lot of bad marketing and bad products put out, and it's time to shed some light, pun intended, on what's actually happening. Bam!
What about yourself, sir?
I think it's great. I think it's great. It gives us a voice to really bring some honesty and some integrity to light science and help us provide as much or more value to the industry as we can.
Now, the things you guys have to know about a podcast is a podcast with a brand is the perfect vehicle when you want to tell your story. If you want to tell your story, have guest people tell your story, that's what we're going to be doing on this series. It's going to have some celebrity guests. We're going to have some cultivators, some growers, some investors, some key people you may want to know throughout this journey where you get to know the brand of Fohse. And starting off, I'll start with you, Brett. What is Fohse? Where did Fohse come from? What is it for the people that don't know?
So Fohse, an acronym for Future of Horticulture, Science, and Engineering. It was derived from actually the Greek word phos, P-H-O-S, which means light in Greek. So originally the company was going to be called Fohse, P-H-O-S, as in like photosynthesis. But there's some trademark issues and whatnot, so we had to look for a new way to spell P-H-O-S. So we spelled it F-O-H-S-E and gave it an acronym.
How long did it take you to flip that once you got the name?
Yeah, I think we did it inside of a week.
So one thing you'll learn on this podcast is you'll really, really learn the genius behind this brand. These guys are, they're beyond their time with innovation, and they're really, really intelligent. So you're really going to get to learn behind the scenes of how they really developed it. What about you, Ben? What was your contribution with starting Fohse and piggybacking on what he said?
Yeah, so like Brett said, one of the biggest things that everyone in the founding team had was just an entrepreneur spirit. We didn't fester on any bad news or any negativity too long. We immediately would pivot, like PHOS to FOHSE. It was actually Brett and I raising capital in Las Vegas and on the West Coast for cannabis cultivations, real estate, a couple other things. And a friend of mine from high school who was a robotics laser engineer, multiple patents on heart defibrillators and pacemakers, reached out to myself and Brett while we were actually going to a cultivation that had actually just burnt down a crop from HPSs and said, hey, check out this LED light. I think it could change the game. It was high powered. It had a full spectrum. It was stuff that we hadn't seen on the market before. And we said, this looks pretty interesting. Let's, build a couple prototypes and see what happens. So we flew them out, flew all the components out. Brett and I actually owned a motocross shop at the time. And we spent a whole weekend hand building 4 prototypes. And after that, we brought them to a couple different cultivations we had some ins at. And 60 days later, a couple of them called us back and said, you guys need to see this. And there was plants growing sideways into our lights, away from other lights. And at that point, Brett and I, again, the light bulb clicked, pun intended. We were like, we are getting out of cultivation. We're going pick and shovel. We're going to do this thing right. And that's when we really dug into Fohse, light science, and tried to just sponge up everything we could. And really start innovating our first product, which is our A3i. And then the rest of the catalog, as you saw, the F1V, O6i, Pallades, Cobra, Aries, Scorpio. I mean, if there was a light you guys needed, we made it. Right. So,
how important have you guys noticed, or how important is it having a quality LED light for growers and cultivators within this industry?
You want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's pivotal, right? I think that having something that's high quality is One is very important for the reliability of the crop, knowing what you're going to have, especially if you're selling into futures or if you're trying to kind of look at where the company is going to be and what the yields are going to be. So making sure that you're not losing light is kind of pivotal to that. And then also quality, right? Making sure that you're buying a light that is not only producing most grams per square foot, but that you can in the facility, because again, that's bottom line. But also you want something that's going to increase the quality as well, whether it be overall terpenes or THC, whatever it is. Having a high quality light will help you increase both those.
Now, what does the average person say to you guys when they come to you looking for a better product? This isn't to talk crap on other people's products, but obviously there's a need for quality. So how do people approach you usually? What does that conversation start like?
Yeah. Honestly, usually people, when they first hear about Fohse, it's either one, they knew us from a friend that's using our products, or two, they saw some of our marketing and said, I've never seen a light output that high. You've got my curiosity. Because if you look at just basic spec sheets, the A3i puts out 4,300, 4,200 ppf. The next closest competitor is about half that. So you got to imagine, all growers are going to go, why would they make a light so powerful? And then you start seeing what the plants do underneath it. And you talk about ramping, how we start at 50%, go up 1% a day, switch spectrums to help reduce shock and stress in early stages. That first month the plant pops into flower. And what that does over the entire crop cycle or at harvest means higher terpenes, cannabinoids, better yields, better canopy penetration, putting the right stress to the plant. There's a lot of things that come with it. So one, it's a curiosity thing, and two, if they see what the light has done, then it's usually I saw the A3i, I want that, and they know what they want, or they say, hey, what would you guys recommend? I see you guys put out some high-powered stuff. No one else is doing that. Why did you do it? How did you do it? And what's the benefit? So that's usually the main conversations we have, a couple dozen times a week.
What's the largest misconception that you both have come across as relates to people saying, oh, no, we don't need that right now. We're good with this light that we have. Our numbers aren't great. Our yields are okay. We are losing a little bit of light. But what's the misconception that you try to connect with those people?
Number one. This is an easy one right here. This is that high PPFD means low quality. That's the farthest thing from the truth. That's genetics are going to express the way genetics do, and as long as you're keeping up with feed and as long as you're keeping up with removing the moisture from the air, you're going to have monster plants that are beautiful, full of THC.
So, ladies and gentlemen, essentially what he's saying is, yes, the lights are important, but there are so many other variables that have to go into play as relates to having a successful room, as he says, removing the moisture from the room, and a few other variables like that. So what would you say is a misconception that you've noticed?
Yeah, that's one of the big ones that we've just noticed recently is people miscommunicating high PPFD to low quality, which Brett kind of nailed. This is when feedings were only at 2.0 EC, or, they didn't know how to use high intensity lights. But it's very easily combated once you start looking and you talk to a couple cultivators who are using 1,500 PPFD, and you see their COAs, you see the yields, and they're not just achieving higher quality. They're achieving higher yields, and they're doing it faster. And that's because the photosynthetic rates in the plants, with more light energy, there's more photosynthesis going on. Those chemical reactions are happening more and faster. So when that happens, you can't say there's going to be less quality oil from a higher energetic plant. That doesn't make any fucking sense. Another thing would be the price.
Definitely just a marketing tactic for people
it's marketing tactic.
Can't do what we do.
It's funny. The only time you see that said is by companies who don't have a light that puts out 3,000 ppf. So another thing is price. People assume Fohse is associated with like Bugatti Veyron pricing, which, yes, we do have expensive lights, but we price match people. We have leasing programs, and we have other lighting options and models and fixtures for specific budgets. We have a company we work with, Hoplite, powered by Fohse. If you need just a foldable, quick, easy light to use, that's a couple $100. We've got you. If you need a vertical system, the F1V is damn near priced at $1 a watt. If you want the multi-spectrum lights that change colors, or that can go from spring, summer, autumn, 4,000 ppf, it might be a little more expensive to get some of those units, but that's why we have Porsche 911 Turbo S, and we got the Boxster. Both are Porsches.
Sure. Brand loyalty is key, and I think great products enables you to have a long relationship with the brand, such as Fohse. What has been a deciding factor in scaling the company as you guys have done in the last 7 years? What has been one of the leading decisions in growing it, you would say?
Making sure we don't grow too fast. We want to make sure that, first and foremost, integrity is number one at Fohse. So we're never just going to send lights and just say good luck, right? We want to be here with you guys as they're growing. We want to make sure that if there's anything we can do to make sure that they're successful, we're there, whether it be helping with genetics or whether it be helping with any SOPs, whatever needs to happen in that grow to make sure that their success is going on is what we need to do, because in the end, their success is our success. And so we really pride ourselves in growing slow as a company, as far as making sure that we are taking on clients that we can provide value to, and that won't just be kind of washed down the proverbial sink as we continue to grow and grow and grow. So.
Yeah, I'm just going to kind of build off of what he said. We kind of call it rolling the red carpet out. We're not just a lighting manufacturer. First and foremost, we are an engineering firm. Everything you see is designed in-house. We are the manufacturer, the OEM. Everything's built through CAD, SolidWorks. And when we started growing this company, we went from a couple guys, and we never had crazy sales tactics. We weren't pushy. We didn't do aggressive pricing or cutthroat anything. It was just put up the lights. If you want to test it against someone, we encourage it. We always encourage testing, and just let the plants be the judge. The plants will always tell the truth, right? But with that was bringing on people with expertise that we didn't have. So like our horticultural team, completely brought on by us from guys who had used our technology in commercial settings, in greenhouse, vertical grows, single tier, grown against HPS with our LEDs, and guys who have, basically collected all the data on how they were so successful with our units. We brought those guys on and made them our in-house horticultural team. They will go out and spend days, if not weeks, with clients, depending on how fast they need to learn how to use these systems, or if there's any issues that they do have, and they will mitigate problems. They will write SOPs, plant care protocol. And they'll kind of hold their hand through that first harvest. That's been a huge one for us, because, maybe 90% of our guys knock it out of the park first time they put up the lights. But for those 10%, we don't want that 10% to fall behind. If we can help even 10% or 1%, it's a win for us. And like Brett said, their success is ours. And we don't want anyone, to have a bad story with us. Our integrity is everything. So really kind of going above and beyond, whether it be engineers or horticulturists, plant physiologists, we got your back.
So considering that their success is our success, right? When did you know that this was a big deal? Humbly speaking, when did you know that Fohse was a big deal?
First run. So first, we knew, when we built the original prototypes, we didn't guess. This was something that was, like Ben was telling before, this was drawn from a blank sheet of paper, essentially, in-house. So we didn't go to a private label manufacturer. We didn't go to like a contract manufacturer and say, hey, we want to slap our name on something. We built this. Everything was bespoke. Our first lights, we're taking the PCBs and we're soldering, and we're building these lights from the ground up. So I guess originally we knew it was going to be pretty special when we saw what we were doing, and when we were comparing it to what else was in the industry at the time, and we were just so far away from those 600 watt. Our very first light ever was a G2V. It was called the G2V, which is the Star Class G2V, which is our sun. The whole idea was to make that light as powerful as the sun. We wanted to put 2200 ppfd down to the plants, and so what we did is we built that, and we're 1200 watts, and at that time, I think one of our competitors, the biggest thing they had on the market at that point was a 600 watt light, so we're twice as powerful. We put it in directly against that light and another light also and we outgrew those lights on our first run within weeks. And then we moved it to flower, and then that's when within 4 weeks we knew we were going against these double-ended HPS, and we're like, well, here's what we'll find out if a photon really is just a photon, or if spectrum makes a difference, or we're going to look at the photomorphogenic response of the plant, see where the plants, like what Ben was talking about, when the plants really started leaning in toward our lights. That's when we knew we were really feeding them the right way, and I mean, we knew right out of the gate when these got hung. Within 2-3 weeks, we had something that we had to bring to the market.
What was the first call you got that you knew from someone that had your lights? What was the first call where you knew, damn it, we're in there?
Yeah, that would probably be Kevin Coute. That was the guy who'd kind of tested a couple prototypes for us, and he did in multiple applications. He was throwing them in different flower rooms, different temperatures, and he was actually collecting data, which was big 7 years ago. Not everyone was doing it. I mean, you walk in and it'd be like coffee-stained clipboards of their feeding schedules, and Kevin was using stuff that no one else had even tried before, and he had tried 13 other LEDs since we'd walked in the door. And when he called us, and I remember the story, Brett tells it all the time, he said, I'm going to call you in 2 weeks. It either works or it doesn't. If you don't pick up your phone and it doesn't work, I'm throwing it in the trash. And he goes, it's called the LED graveyard. And he brought us back. It was like a weird thing to show us at the time, but there was like a bunch of just LEDs thrown on the ground.
He had been testing so many Chinese-made, Alibaba lights that were private label lights that weren't really bringing any more value to him. He wanted to stay in the yields of the HPS, and he literally had a graveyard of a trash area, because GB Sciences was a really well-known and respected place out here, right? If you can think of a light in the industry now, they probably tested over at GB Sciences, and we beat all of them. Our first run with our very first light that we made, bespoke, one-off, in a motocross shop. So that's when we really knew, like, holy cow, we have something so different.
Yeah, he called us in, and he goes, I have one in flower, one in veg. Or no, two in flower, one in veg. And he shows us the one in veg, and the fan leaves are like the size, like bigger than your hands. Like they're like the size of footballs. And we were like, that's good, right? And he was like, yeah, that's what we're looking for. And then we went to the flower room, and then that's when we saw it was the same genetic, and the plants underneath our light were 6 inches taller, much healthier. I mean, you didn't have to be a horticultural specialist to know that those were the plants that you'd put your money on. And then they were growing sideways. Other plants were growing sideways, like literally going through the trellis. He's like, yeah, we actually have to move the tables away from your light because the plants keep trying to attack your light.
Yeah, they had them on GGS rolling tables, and they had to make sure that there's three rows of tables, and they had to make sure that ours was in the middle, that the two on the outsides were on the far outside, because otherwise the plants would try to grow into our lights because of what we've been able to do with our spectrum and power out of that.
So two things here. So the gentleman that he mentioned, Mr. Kevin Coute, he is the VP of Cultivation at Loom Cannabis. Definitely a figure you'll want to look into and learn some more about as relates to Fohse and our partnership with them. There was a follow-up question that I had with that. And being on the front leading edge of cultivation and innovation with LED lights, how do you guys continue to stay ahead with new lights? I know we have one coming called the Hop Light, which is for the home growers. What info could you share there?
Yeah, I mean, we're just always watching and seeing where we can provide value. We're never just going to make something to make it. We could make anything. We have engineers on staff and hired. We will not just make a light. Such as on like UV, right? The data, the real world data over years and years and years of reading all kinds of data says that UV isn't what a lot of people think that it is. It's a good way to burn plants, and other than that, it doesn't. So it doesn't really provide value. So for us, we didn't jump on that board, right? We were testing far reds and reds during flush in 2015, right? We've done all these tests, and we could make anything, but for us, really staying valuable. Making sure that if we're selling something to a grow, we're not just taking their money. That's not what we're doing this for. We want to make sure that we're providing something that is creating value. So if we're in the industry and we're saying, okay, we need to do this, we need to do that, like I said, we can make anything. And as soon as we see where there's some data behind, whoa, this is viable, whether it be a more value generated light, where it's a lower barrier to entry, price point wise, or it's growing the biggest plants that you can. That's more what we're looking for is value.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just kind of go off of what he said. Again, we've built lights for propagation, veg, mothers, early flower. We've tested spectrums for everything. Cloned, down to tissue cuts. We've made lights for everything. Even including different form factors. For one of our clients, we built a 7-foot light just because they didn't want to put any more plugs into a grow. So we're like, yeah, we got you, not a problem.
It was a rack, so
it was a rack system. They wanted one light per 4x8. Well, we'll make a 7.5-foot light for you, no problem. We've done it. Like you said, it's providing value, whether it be our technology, our team, our knowledge, whatever you need. Our partners, we don't just have clients. We have partners like Green Bodie and Brothers Grimm and Loom. And Valley Pier and some of these bigger guys, MSOs that are willing to even jump on the phone with other local cultivators that are their competitors and be like, yeah, I'm seeing these results. I'm doing this. Do you want to come do a tour? We've got guys that'll literally tour their competitors through their grow because of the relationship we have with them. And that's what we really strive for, is educating the masses. And again, like Brett said, just providing value every turn, every chance we get, provide value.
So this takes me back to an earlier question. So knowing that you guys provide such value within the cannabis industry and growers, did you guys ever see Vegas? For those that may not know, our headquarters is here in Vegas. We're about 10 miles or 10 minutes from the airport, I would say. Did you guys ever see Vegas turn into the market it is now with knowing, well, maybe you did, which is why Fohse is obviously ahead of the game. But what were some of those signs that you knew?
Yeah, we both came to Vegas for the cannabis industry. Nice. We both moved from the Midwest here. For the cannabis industry. So we knew we wanted to be a part of this market. We didn't know the regulations were going to be as good as they are here. For anybody that doesn't know, the regulations here are pretty strict, and it's a great environment to grow cannabis in this state. Probably one of the best, I think, maybe even in the whole country. So as far as a pure cultivator. The testing's really strict. We liked it. That's originally how we got into this, right? We were both in a grow, working at a grow, and then, came from the plant side over to here. So, it just so happened that, we're in a desert, and we could see more quickly than I guess anybody else, the need for LED. So we were really in a unique position to where we knew, we knew engineers, we knew there was a need as far as we knew the market, and we knew what the climate was like here, and we didn't want to run night cycles. We didn't want to compete against the nightlife business here. So as far as like hiring manpower, so we needed something to where we weren't freezing our ACs up in the summer.
Sure. What about you? Were you all on board with Vegas?
Yeah, like Brett said, we didn't know how well it was going to roll out. We just knew that this was going to be an awesome market based on all the research we did on Colorado and California, and we saw this is just like the destination spot. When you saw how many millions of people come here a year, you're like, this market's solid, and everyone's willing to overpay. Yeah. So it seemed like a phenomenal market. And then we saw the bonuses of limited licensing and making sure that all the cultivators came with awesome business plans. They had to go through so much just to get that license. I think we only have like half the licenses in use right now too. But because of that, the price of cannabis, the price per pound to the cultivators are making money in Nevada. Unlike other places, they're at a couple $100 a pound, you're getting still $2,000-$3,000 a pound here in Nevada. So if you can grow, this is a great market for sure.
Now, I've been doing some research just recently earlier when we were just checking around, and it's looking like the Northeast is looking to become the cannabis country, with New York and Jersey being on the front line of that. Do you see a huge market or potential in the Northeast with some of the partners there with cannabis?
Yeah. We're doing business with all those guys, right? The industry is opening up over there. I think that if it's anything like Michigan is, it's gonna be ridiculous. It's gonna blow up.
Then, so it's such a huge. New York is a tourist city, like Vegas, LA. I
think New York could be kind of like the next Amsterdam, where
sure.
Vegas it's a melting pot here. You get people from all over. You can go to Fremont and see a different crew, or you can go to Aria and see like a Dubai princess. Yeah, absolutely. So you got, and every one of them's probably going to smoke some weed when they come here.
Absolutely. Yep.
So
or consume it in some way, because you have, for those who may be, babies to consuming cannabis, you obviously have flower, but you have oils, you have topical creams, you have edibles, candies. You have various options here is essentially what we're saying. So, when you come to Vegas, there are multiple ways for you to enjoy how you consume cannabis. But I just wonder your thoughts on that. Obviously, with the tri-state in New York, you know.
I think it'll be interesting to see how they roll out their regulations. That's going to determine, I think, how their market goes for sure. They got a lot of money out there, obviously. You got tribes out there. I know that we're working with a couple of them. Those guys are already gung-ho getting set up. And it's just going to be like how they roll it out, how they work with legacy growers and the institutional money that is New York, and how they work together and play nice is going to be another big thing. You know, something the West Coast has been dealing with in California since they started trying to legalize it. It's black market versus reg market versus legacy. And, you know, there's always going to be some heads that butt. And there's a fine line too. There's a fine line you got to ride. Yeah. And this is the biggest, smallest industry ever. If you mess up your, your name one time, you are screwed. You'll get blackbooked or blacklisted.
Which is important. I mean, your name represents a lot, especially in this industry. That's all you have.
Your integrity is everything.
Integrity and your name is everything. Well, all right, gentlemen, I don't want to give too much away in the first episode. I know both of you will be back again this season, so we will certainly keep this conversation going. But in the meantime, it's been real, guys. For those of you just joining us, be sure to tune in every Friday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our weekly podcast streaming exclusively on Fohse.com. That's Fohse.com. And it's also available on all digital streaming platforms. So again, I'm your host, Leo Wilson, and you're now locked into Welcome to the Future.